Marcus Lemonis is the executive chairman of Bed Bath & Beyond. He issued the following statement. We will not open or operate retail stores in California. This decision isn't about politics, it's about reality. California has created one of the most overregulated, expensive, and risky environments for businesses in America. It's a system that makes it harder to employ people, harder to keep doors open, and harder to deliver value to customers. The result? Higher taxes, higher fees, higher wages that many businesses simply cannot sustain, and endless regulations that strangle growth. Even when the state announces a budget surplus, it's built on the backs of ordinary citizens who are paying too much and businesses who are squeezed until they break. At Bed Bath & Beyond, our responsibility is for our customers and shareholders. We will not participate in a system that undermines both. We're taking a stand because it's time for common sense. Businesses deserve the chance to succeed. Employees deserve jobs that last. And customers deserve fair prices. California's system delivers the opposite. That's why Bed Bath & Beyond will serve California customers directly through the website on our terms and with their best interests at heart. Okay. Could you cut and paste this letter and just insert Illinois, send one in the direction of Governor Pritzker, insert New York, send one in the direction of Kathy Hochul, insert New Jersey, send one to the attention of Phil Murphy, and so on and so forth. For more on the economics of operating in states that are dominated by Marxian enthusiasts, please be joined by Don Boudreaux, American economist, author, professor, co-director of the program on the American economy and globalization at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. Don, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. You know, you were reading that thing by the Bed Bath & Beyond guy. I was reminded that my brother lived in California for 30 years, 35? 30 years. And he ran a little construction company. He owned a little construction company. It wasn't Bed Bath & Beyond, of course. And his wife is from L.A., and they love California. A few years ago, they moved to Tennessee because my brother, one of the main reasons my brother couldn't run his company anymore. The regulations were too stiff. The taxes were too high. And even his L.A. native wife wanted to get out. And I visited them in Tennessee a few months after they moved there. This is like 2021, 2022. I'm driving around Nashville, and I saw a yard sign with a picture of Gavin Newsom on it. And it said, "Congratulations, Gavin Newsom, Realtor of the Year."
Yeah, right.
Tennessee.
Right. Yeah, no, we've got the same thing here, of course, because, Illinois even outpaces California on a per capita basis in terms of the flight from Illinois of productive people. But it's really something because, at least according to the horse race polling right now, and maybe it's just because of name ID generated by trolling Trump on social media, which doesn't amount to very much that's compelling, I would think. But Gavin Newsom is the leader in the clubhouse for the nomination of the Democrat Party in 2028.
Heaven help us, and heaven help the Democrats. That's just not. I'm not a political predictor, Dan, but I just can't imagine that Gavin Newsom's going to play well in the American heartland, and he's going to need to win the American heartland if he has any hope of gaining the presidency. And he's got too much of a bad track record in California. Same thing, by the way, with your governor, if he has any pretensions to the White House.
Yeah. Oh, he does. Yeah, it's the same story. And I don't know the when we've had you on the show multiple times, you've really gotten into it, but I mean, do you have perspective on these big urban centers, the Chicagos and the LAs and the New York Cities, particularly if Mamdani wins and he's lapping the field right now? You know, what is the future of these big cities with different names pursuing the same policies, state-run grocery stores and government housing and rent control and higher taxes on work and productivity and open-ended blank checks to government school systems and the like?
Yeah, and cheering the murder of corporate executives on top of it all. You're a Chicagoan, Dan, and I don't think Chicago's fared very well under its recent run of mayors and the current guy. It's just not good. I mean, as the Bed Bath and Beyond president or CEO said in the letter that you read, when you make it impossible or overly difficult for productive people to stay in your vicinity, you're going to run them out of that vicinity, and you're going to be left with unproductive, predatory people. And by predatory people here, I mean mostly people who predate through the government. They want to tax the productive people. They want to regulate the productive people, and that just runs productive people away. And so it's bad. These cities are going to decline, at least relative to how they would otherwise have performed. Cities are great engines of human creativity and entrepreneurial energy, but at some point, they can only take so much abuse, and that abuse will help to destroy them.
Well, I saw John Katsimedes on, I think it was a Fox Business show. Katsimedes, who's I think a billionaire, entrepreneur, grocery stores, maybe construction too. I can't remember, but anyway, he made mention. New York City already has on top of the state income tax, on top of the federal income tax, has what, a 14% top marginal rate in New York City for a city income tax.
I think that's right. Yeah,
and which is just astounding. And he said, look, for all this "eat the billionaires" rhetoric coming from Mamdani and his supporters, so many elected officials in New York, the AOCs of the world, the top 1% of New York City residents pay 48% of all the taxes that New York City receives. So, income taxes that New York City receives. So, I mean, you want to chase the 1% out, you're going to have a hole in this utopian spending you want to do that you're completely unprepared for.
Yeah, well, it's Margaret Thatcher famously and correctly said the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money, and you do. And you do. Fortunately, there is in the U.S. there are states and locales that treat productive people better, and so people, productive people vote with their feet, as my brother did, as Bed Bath and Beyond is doing, and going to where they're treated better. And that's a good. Hopefully, that will work one day as a check on these socialist enthusiasms of people like Mamdani. But it's not working now. They're just delusional, Dan. I don't know what these people think. They think that there's this gigantic store of idle wealth sitting in some big warehouses somewhere, being hoarded by rich people, and they're going to go in and take it and make life better for others. And it's a total misunderstanding of the way market economies work and why people are wealthy. The vast majority of billionaires in America, multimillionaires in America today, they got that way because they're productive. They produced. They made other people wealthier by supplying goods and services, and that's how they got rich. They didn't get rich by stealing the money, not hoarding the money in some idle way. That money's out there in investments being used productively. You tax it away, you give it to government, and it becomes less productive, and the economy suffers.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Bolivians just rejected socialists in their most recent election over the weekend, and you would think that maybe someday Chicagoans and New York denizens might consider that as well. Take a page out of the Bolivians or the Argentinians handbook. That would be nice. I wanted to get to some trade talk, of course. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, says this sort of truce that is at the present situation between China and the United States on tariffs has been working pretty well. You agree?
Well, it's better than having an outright trade war, for sure. It remains, because Trump has been so erratic in his tariff policy. I don't know that we can make good predictions about what and when retaliation is going to start. I think the Chinese are probably hoping for Trump to give further tariff relief on their exports to the U.S., and so maybe they're playing nice with him now. But if he maintains a belligerent trade stance, I think the Chinese will eventually no longer be playing nice. So it remains to be seen. I mean, obviously, what's happening now, the calm now, is better than an outright trade war now. And the longer we can maintain the calm, the better. But I am not at all optimistic that we're going to maintain it.
You wrote recently, relatively recently, this op-ed with Phil Gramm, former senator from Texas, that of the tariffs that Trump has imposed, by sort of product category, the steel and aluminum tariffs are the most damaging.
Hmm.
Why?
Well, number one, because they are, in fact, these are inputs used in lots of outputs in America. And so there are, I think I remember the number off the top of my head. For every steel and aluminum producing job in America, there are 36 jobs that Americans hold in industries that use steel and or aluminum as a major input. So you raise the cost of steel and aluminum through tariffs. You might protect a few jobs in steel mills and aluminum factories, but you're reducing jobs. You're reducing output in those factories in America that use these inputs use these metals as inputs to make their final outputs. And if you really think that steel and aluminum are, really necessary to drive the American economy, you want a greater abundance of it, not less of it, and you get a greater abundance of it by opening your market to the world. I mean, there may be a case you might not want to be reliant on a particular country because of, for strategic or military reasons, but there are lots of steel producers around the world: Canada, Brazil, Italy. Most of these other, South Korea, they're friends. And so we should accept their steel without tariffing it. And that will help our industries that use those metals to better compete in world markets.
Well, the U.S. imports about a quarter of the steel it consumes and about half of the aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we even have the capacity to replace, that much steel and aluminum that we otherwise import by producing it domestically? Is that even possible with the current infrastructure in those industries?
Well, the argument would go, well, can't do it overnight. And so, well, I suppose it's possible to rebuild it, but that would be a huge cost. And so, if we ramp up our capacity to to produce steel and aluminum here in America, those resources and workers are coming away from other industries. And so you can get declining output there, and it's going to make the economy less productive. So I assume it's physically possible, Dan, but it would be economically almost prohibitively costly to do so.
And you think the Trump's tariff policy, uh, to the extent that this isn't part of the purpose, it devalues the dollar and thus undermines its status as the world's reserve currency?
I think the erraticism of it, yes, by making America a less attractive place to invest, both because of the economic uncertainty and because he's raising, 61% of American imports are inputs used. And so that makes it less attractive for foreigners to do foreign direct investment in America to expand their capacity here. And so despite the handful of trumpeted, no pun intended, trumpeted, okay, we have more investment by Intel and Apple producing in America. In the long run, these policies are going to diminish foreign investment in America. And as that happens, the demand for the dollar on world markets will be lower. And President Trump will unfortunately get his wish. U.S. trade deficits will fall. But they'll fall not for any good reason. They'll fall simply because foreigners are fleeing the American market, and that will not be good for us.
But I suppose the good news is, at least at present, I mean, you can undermine your position, you chip away at it, as you're suggesting, but at least for now, we're still the tallest skyscraper in Wichita, and everybody wants to be in this market. I mean,
That's right.
there's only so much that Malay can take in, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, we are enormously helped, we Americans, by the fact that so many world governments are foolish and pursue economic policies that are even more destructive than some of the worst policies that we pursue. And so because of that, you have, to the extent that people still want to invest, well, America remains a relatively desirable place to invest. But as with the cities, Dan, at some point, that advantage will be destroyed if we're not careful, and if we don't return to a more sound policy of respecting people's freedom to spend their incomes as they choose, to invest as they choose, stop demanding that companies give golden shares of their stock to the government. That gives the government an undue say in what these companies do. All of that works to our economic detriment.
Don Boudreaux, American economist, author, professor, co-director of the program on the American economy and globalization at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. Don, thanks as always.
Thank you, Dan.
And Don joins us on the turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
I'm Robert Anderson, president of McLaughlin Body Company in the Quad Cities, and a customer of Signature Bank. When our 100-year-old family-owned manufacturing company was looking for a new bank, we found an excellent partner with Signature Bank. Signature Bank understands that